Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Second Cup with Keith. I'm your host, Keith Giles. And well, this is our final episode of the new year. I want to thank you all for joining me here for this episode. Thank you all of you who have been keeping up with the podcast. I know I paused it for a little bit this year, but I'm very excited to bring it back. And in this new live format, which is a lot of fun. I probably should also say that this Choircast podcast is brought to you by The Quantum Sayings of Jesus. Yes, my own book that came out this year. It's been number one on Amazon for over 7 months, going on 8. Sold over 1,000 copies of this book so far. I have 91 mostly 5-star reviews on Amazon. Just saw a couple today that were really, really encouraging. Yeah, this book has just blown me away. My expectations for this book were high, but I really had no idea, no way to guess that it would be as popular as it has been. And very grateful for that. All of you who have read it and shared it with friends and told people about it, thank you all very much. That's meant a lot, and I'm sure this has a lot to do with how well the book has gone. I am currently working on the follow-up book to The Quantum Sayings of Jesus. That book will be called The Quantum Sayings of Mary and The Lost Gospel of Truth. It'll be a combination of two extra biblical books. They're not really Gnostic texts, although a lot of people consider them Gnostic, but those people are usually not scholars of these types of texts. I cover that in the Gospel, the Quantum Sayings of Jesus. I'll definitely be covering that in the Quantum Sayings of Mary and the Gospel of Truth. Yeah, the Gospel of Truth is a little more obscure, although I love it so much. And I also realized that if I published a book about the Gospel of Truth, it would not get the kind of attention that I think it deserves, because people don't even know what the Gospel of Truth is. They would assume a book about the Gospel of Truth was just a book about the Gospels, right? They don't know that the Gospel of Truth is the name of a Nag Hammadi book that was discovered alongside the Gospel of Truth. Sorry, the Gospel of Thomas, or anything about it. So this is my opportunity to make people aware of what the Gospel of Truth is, and why I think it's so important. So to kind of help boost that commentary for the Gospel of Truth, I'm combining it with the Gospel of Mary, which of course most people are aware of, that there is something called the Gospel of Mary. And there's a lot of interest in the Gospel of Mary. I definitely think everyone who has read and enjoyed the Quantum Sayings of Jesus about the Gospel of Thomas will absolutely want to read the commentary on the Gospel of Mary. That's what I'm currently working on right now, is that section of the book, which is the Gospel of Mary. And if you're subscribed to my Inner Circle, either on Patreon, which is my direct sort of Patreon support page, you can access it there every Friday. You can also access it through Patheos, through my blog, keithgiles.com, and click on any of the Inner Circle posts there, and it'll give you a little prompt on how you can subscribe to receive all of those future Inner Circle posts. So the Inner Circle is something that I do, and it's really only for subscribers and supporters on my Patreon page. It's something that I started a while back, and it's been very successful. People that some people have Substacks and Medium and things like that. I still do my free blog, keithgiles.com. So you can, go to keithgiles.com, go to Patheos and subscribe to that blog for free and read. I try to post once a week, at least, sometimes twice a week. Like this coming week, today I had a new post about how to have a more hopeful new year. That's actually kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And I also have a post coming out Wednesday on New Year's Day. I'm really excited about. I'm really proud of. I'm not even sure I want to say the title of it, but well, I guess I might as well, because you'll know in a couple of days anyway. That post is going to be about how to change your algorithm in 2025. In a way, it's about sort of hacking, quote unquote, the algorithm. And by that, I mean social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Google, you know. We know there's an algorithm, right? We know that we may not know exactly how it works, but we do know, for example, when you search for something on Google, you'll start getting ads for something related to that search, right? And when you watch certain videos on YouTube, you'll start seeing more of those kinds of videos suggested to you based on the fact that you searched for and watched videos on that particular subject, right? So that's how the algorithm reacts to you and responds to you. So what if there was a way, this is just a teaser for that post. What if there was a way for you to take control of that algorithm and use it to train it, I should say, train the algorithm to send you more of what you would like to be focused on in the year ahead. It's a little more proactive approach to a New Year's resolution, if you will, with a little bit of a techie spin on it. So anyway, I'm excited about that article. That's already written and uploaded and scheduled. That'll be out on Wednesday. But check out the one I posted today about how to have a more hopeful New Year. Although we are going to kind of go over some of that in our discussion today. Anyway, again, thank you all for being here. I hope you've had a good year. I will say it's been an interesting year, and I know for a lot of us, good things and bad things. But yeah, I mean, overall, I would say it's been a good year for me and for my family. I mean, as I said, I published a book this year that has sat at the top and parked at the top of #1 on Amazon in Christian mysticism and spirituality, and a couple other categories, either #1 or #2, but it's been #1 on mysticism and spirituality for over 7 months now. And that's been amazing. You know, that's the kind of thing as an author you hope for, you know, but also understand, you know, there's a whole lot of things that happen in the background for that kind of thing to, you know, it's sort of like going viral on social media, right? Most of the time people go viral, I would say almost every time anyone goes viral on social media, it's an accident. There might be a few conditions you can go back and look at it and say, okay, well, because of this, because of that, there's usually multiple factors, but a lot of them were not intentional, right? They were accidental. And so like I had something go viral a couple of years ago, and literally I made a tweet in the morning, and by the afternoon I was getting phone calls from Anderson Cooper at CNN, to his producer, asking if I could be on their show live that night. That's crazy, right? And if I could do that anytime I wanted, I would be on Anderson Cooper's show every night, or at least once a week, right? But I don't know how to do that. I cannot duplicate that. Those things will happen, and what you need to do is be ready for the possibility that that could happen, so that when it does happen, you know, you're not scrambling to figure out what to do about it, right? So, yeah, anyway, just that it's been a good year. That book has done extremely well. I'm also very happy that I was able this year to publish a book of my poetry and song lyrics, Winter Moon and Coffee Stain. Very excited that Wendy, my wife Wendy, was able to provide artwork for the paperback cover, as well as for the hardback edition. There was a hardback edition and a paperback edition and a Kindle, but the hardback had a different cover than the paperback, right? These are the things you can do when you own a publishing company. And this is called a vanity project. But that was fun. You know what I mean? It was really cool to be able to do that. I've been intending this year to go to more like local poetry, like open mic poetry nights and that kind of thing here in El Paso. I did one of them right before the book came out, and that was a lot of fun. And I had promised myself I was going to do more of them this year. Of course, I never did get around to doing that. Maybe next year I'll be able to do that. That would be fun. Just to be able to read your poetry out loud. There's a different dynamic, being in front of people, in front of a crowd with a microphone, reading your poetry live and then getting real-time reactions from people. Like, that's really interesting, really fascinating. So that was fun to do, at least to do that one time, and to publish that book. Those are the only books I've had this year. I try to do 2 books a year when I can. It doesn't always work that way. I think last year my books were, I did Second Cup with Keith and probably Solideos, right? I think those are the 2 last year. This coming year, I'm hoping I'm going to be able to put out possibly 3 books or 4 books next year. We'll see. 2 for sure, because they're pretty much done. I mentioned I'm going to be doing the Quantum Sayings of Mary and the Lost Gospel of Truth. That'll be in June. It's May or June I'm shooting for. And of course, I've mentioned before, I'm doing a book with Matthew DiStefano called Reading Romans Right. Sort of reclaiming the book of Romans as much as possible from the Gospel Coalition and a lot of Reformed theologians and things like that. So that'll be coming out in March. And that's done. So those are done. The other things I have scheduled or not scheduled, but on my on my little whiteboard over here, things I want to work on. I want to see if I can publish in the coming year. This is still another kind of a vanity project. What I mean by vanity project is it's not something that anyone is asking for, like my poetry book, right? I did it because I wanted to do it. And so that's kind of it's publishing something not because there's a market for it, not because there's a demand for it. There might be. If there is, great. But if there isn't, you don't care. You're going to do it anyway, right? So, yeah, my vanity project for 2025, and it is about 90% done, is to do there's a science fiction novella that I wrote. The first draft of several years ago, probably like 15 years ago. And I kind of let it sit, obviously. Just I didn't feel like at the time it was really ready, and it wasn't ready. But I've gone back to look at it again. And I think it was last year Sequire published an anthology, a science fiction short story anthology called Augmented, Volume 1. And I included in that anthology a short story for Hard Video. That was the name of the novella, but the novella was based on this short story I'd written. So I put just the short story part of it and published that in that anthology. And there's a really interesting backstory to that short story. But anyway, I did sit down and finish. I sort of basically picked up where that short story ended, continued it forward, wrote that first rough draft of the novella. So now I want to be able to go back and rewrite that novella because it needs a second draft. And I just yesterday got an idea, like a really cool idea, for how to create some sort of like interludes in between some of the chapters that kind of does some world building and some little more deep dive into the technology associated with this world, and do some social commentary as well, those kind of things. That'll be a lot of fun. And so I'm looking forward to writing those sections. So that's what I'm going to be hopefully going to put out next fall. And so that'll be it's called Hard Video. It'll be the novella. And I also had published a short comic. It was published actually in an anthology several years ago. That was with the help of an artist named Carrie Randolph. Carrie's a fantastic professional artist, still working today in professional comics. Has one of his comic projects is right now being worked up into a movie. So he's really good, really talented guy, and I'm very honored to have worked with him when he was kind of just beginning his career. and have completed that short story, short comic. So I want to be able to include the pages of the comic in the novella as well, and probably leverage some of his artwork for the cover art as well as much as possible, because it's great. It's really cool. So that's my vanity project for 2025. And then in addition to all of that, I feel like I hope anyway. You never know, right? I'm hoping I'm going to be able to write another book in addition to all of those. So we'll see. Two books next year for sure. Very likely 3 books next year. And if I really am able, allowed to focus and sit down and work on something and outline it and write it up, maybe 4 books next year. So that'll be amazing. Very, very excited about that. Yeah. Sorry, Joanne. So I got a comment here. Joanne McAfee says, "You're not old." Okay. Right. Okay. Right. And then Joanne says she remembers the my viral thing that was about my friend Martin. That's right. I'm not going to go into that because if you remember it, great. If you don't, it's not that important. Yeah. So for this episode, I wanted to talk about this is the final episode of Second Cup with Keith for this year. Looking into the new year coming ahead, and it's just that kind of time. I don't know about you. I really enjoy this time of year. I like the opportunity to pause and reflect on the previous year, right? Things that have happened, good and bad. Hopefully I've learned some things from these experiences I had this year. But taking that time to do that, I think is really important. And then also I talked about this in my newsletter. I do a newsletter for my Patreon subscribers called Imperfect Signals, and I do it every Sunday. So I published one yesterday. And I talked a little bit in that about this, it's probably not a secret that it's very difficult for a lot of us to think about the year ahead, even the next couple of months coming up, like even maybe the next couple of weeks coming up. And with any kind of hope or optimism. I think a lot of people are filled with anxiety, especially if you are queer or trans, if you are worried about your marriage to your partner being undone by the incoming administration. If you are a person of color, if you are someone who is either yourself an immigrant here, or even if you're here legally, you may be concerned because you yourself or your loved ones and family members and friends are at risk of being deported. That's very uncertain. So for a lot of people, there's a lot of fear and anxiety regarding that. If you're working in media, even just myself doing this podcast and Heretic Happy Hour and other things that we do with choir, some uncertainty regarding whether or not we might need to defend ourselves or protect ourselves from the incoming administration wanting to shut us down or file lawsuits against us, take away our ability to say things and publish things that are critical of the administration, right? So all of these things are out there. All of these things are possible, right? There's also the danger of just the economy collapsing, right? I don't know about you, but I've seen quite a few things that suggest that if even a few of the threats that have been made by the incoming administration start to happen, it's going to affect the economy in a very negative way. If you think groceries are expensive now, if you think gasoline is expensive now, if you think it's difficult to pay your bills and pay your rent and survive now, there's a very good chance that in just a few months, it's going to get exponentially more difficult. All right. Elon Musk has even said that it's going to get a lot harder for people course, as a multi-billionaire, he's not worried, but the rest of us are worried that the economy could take a very wrong turn. So for all those reasons, it's very difficult to look forward to the new year with any kind of optimism or hope. That's where I am anyway. Maybe you're not there, but I am, and I know a lot of people that I talk to are kind of in that same boat. So because of that, I do a group every Sunday called Square 3. And you may have heard me talk about, a few years ago, like 5 years ago, I started this online course and community called Square 1. And that was to help people walk through their deconstruction process and help them, give them the tools and resources that they need to sort of figure out what deconstruction looks like for them, because everyone's different. I can never tell anybody what it should look like for them, because we're all different. We all start at different places on the curve, and we all end at different places. If ending is even an appropriate, concept. I don't think it ever ends. I think you're always going to be questioning and learning and growing and relearning things, right? That's my thing. But anyway, that's why I started Square 1. So for over 100 people have gone through that, and it's been great to do that and to provide that for people and to get to know some people going through that process. By the way, if you would like to be a part of Square 1 or Square 2, if you go to choiracademy.com, really just between today and tomorrow, that in fact it will end. This coupon code, this promo code I've created, it'll give you 50% off. It expires Tuesday, December 31st, 2024. So if you use the promo code XMAS, XMAS, you get 50% off. So you can you can get Square 1 and Square 2 for half price, basically, for 2 days. Anyway, so that's something I still make available to people. But initially the plan was that Square 1 would just end and it would be over. But people loved it so much, and the community aspect was great. People wanted to continue going through and having these kinds of conversations together. So I created Square 2, which actually is even better than Square 1. I think it's way, way better than Square 1, just in terms of the content. Because it's like, it's covering a lot of really important questions that don't get covered in Square 1. It talks about quantum spirituality, meditation. It talks about penal substitutionary atonement theory. It talks about the wrath of God. It talks about prayer post, evangelical Christianity. What is prayer all about? And it's conversations that I'm having with some amazing people: David Bentley Hart, Brad Jersak, Brian Zahn, Paul Young, Andre Rabe, Karen Schock. Yeah, it's cool. It's really great. Anyway, so after Square 1 and Square 2, the same thing happened. People were like, well, we don't want it to end. So, okay, I said, let's do it. Let's do a Square 3. And it's not driven by any kind of content. It's literally just a Zoom call. So every Sunday for like 2 hours, we have a Zoom call and we talk about whatever is on anyone's mind. It's really an open season. People, we've talked about everything from Bigfoot to UFOs to reincarnation, near-death experiences, psychedelic experiences, mushrooms. Gosh, sometimes we watch movies or documentaries and talk about them. All kinds of stuff. A lot of the stuff I talk about here actually is inspired by conversations that I have had in those Square 3 groups. So yesterday in our Square 3 group, we talked about the new year, right? We really talked about sort of past, present, and future. And I think this time of year is the perfect time, as I said, to kind of pause and reflect on the past and to think about your present and to sort of imagine what you think the future should be. Now, I know the previous episodes I've talked about the illusion of time and everything is now and all that. And I definitely still agree with that. I'm not changing my mind on that. But that's more about a shift in your perspective in the moment to focus on the now and not worry about the past or the future. What I'm talking about in this episode is the value of, I guess, this sort of like things you can do to improve your now experience, right? And we can do that by a couple of things, right? And I want to go down the list of some things. These are some things that we identified in our conversation with Square 3 yesterday, and this is what I blogged about today. Things that I think are very helpful to help us at least think about and approach this coming new year with as much optimism and hope as possible. Like, what would that take, right? How would that be? What would that be like? So, I think one thing is, and this is the first thing that I brought up was, yeah, there is just something about that blank calendar, right? Like I live and die by my calendars. I've got a whiteboard up here on the wall that's erasable that you can write in the month, write in the dates, and write in the days and what's going to happen and schedules and all that stuff. So I can just glance up and see, okay, what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow, what's happening 2 weeks from now. And so my January calendar is already created and I'm looking at it and there's a lot of blank spaces there, right? There's a couple of things filled in, but for the most part, there's a lot of blank spaces here. And what do those blank squares on the calendar represent, right? Well, they represent possibility. They represent uncertainty. And I think it's important to embrace uncertainty. I think it's really important for us to recognize that life is about uncertainty, right? There's all kinds of things that happened this year. And I'm sure you could stop and think about this for yourself. Lots of things happened this year. There were good things that happened this year and bad things, right? That you didn't expect or plan on, both good and bad. And so, recognizing that that's life, right? There's going to be things that happen that are really great and you don't see them coming. And also some things that are challenging and, you wish wouldn't happen. And you don't see those things coming either, but it's not all bad. And so I think that's one good thing is to recognize that as we're thinking about this coming year ahead, and again, with a little bit of possible anxiety or dread about wondering what might happen. The thing is, we don't know what will happen. Just because we are afraid it's going to happen does not mean it's going to happen. By the way, there's a lot of good reasons to believe, to have hope for the fact that some of those things the specific things that we are right now concerned about, afraid about, have anxiety about. There's a really good chance those things will not happen for a variety of reasons. Some of those reasons might be incompetence on the part of those who want to make these things happen, combined with opposition and resistance from people who definitely do not want these things to happen, and lots of other factors that we can't even imagine. So again, hold loosely to that. Don't start feeling in your body. Don't start feeling in your mind the pain associated with the thing that hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. So there's no reason for you to be feeling and behaving as if it has happened, because it hasn't happened, right? Like I've got this calendar here. I also have a paper calendar, right, that I also keep on my desk. This is my January, what it looks like so far. And again, a lot of blank spaces there. And that, I guess I say that because, like, for me, looking at a blank calendar filled with all those empty spaces, I don't know, there's something hopeful about the unwritten parts of our story, right? There are things that haven't been written yet in our story, and we can see there's a blank space that something could be written there. And how much do we get to write that, right? We have some ability to decide what's going to go in those blank spaces, what we're going to do with our time. And I say this in the post. There are unexpected challenges that will arise, but also unexpected joys. The blank calendar is not a guarantee of smooth sailing, but it is a reminder that the story isn't over. And that's enough, hopefully, to keep moving forward. The other thing is, I think, to think about the things that you do or that you can do that keep you anchored and keep you focused, in the moment, on the now, right? And it's different for everybody. There's no one answer to this question. Like everybody is going to respond to different things and different practices that are going to help you. So it could be journaling, keeping a journal. It could be practicing gratitude. It could be a community, which could be one friend, two friends. It could be a whole group of people, but people that are sort of your tribe, right? People that get you and know you and love you and support you and are stand with you and that you can depend on, right? And they depend on you. These are the things that kind of keep us anchored. And so I would say, if you're looking for hope in the new year, lean on those things that give you hope, they bring you joy and meaning and purpose. For a lot of people, right, that might even be serving other people, right? Finding a way to bring joy to other people's lives. So, and again, these are the things that we know. These are practices that actually do build resilience and hope, right? That help us when things are overwhelming. So for me, like in the past, it's been journaling. I don't journal anymore, but for a long time it was journaling. Then it was meditation, and for many years, that was what centered me and grounded me and gave me peace of mind was meditation. And now it's practicing gratitude, usually in the form of taking walks around my neighborhood, but that gives me this freedom and opportunity to just kind of reflect on everything I'm grateful for. And that has been really nourishing to me spiritually. A big one is, and we talked about this yesterday, because as we were talking about things like journaling or meditating, whatever, right? Or being creative, some of us were talking about like doing more writing or painting or poetry or whatever, right? Which is also something really good to do. There's a bit of condemnation that comes in, right? Like, well, I wanted to do it. I planned to do it. This is why I don't like doing New Year's resolutions, right? Because you make a resolution. Oh, thank you. December Rose says, nice haircut. You're looking smooth. Thank you. Thank you for noticing my haircut. My own mother did not notice. I cut my hair pretty short here. Anyway, but going back to what I was saying. So we can have these motivations, right, these desires for good things, right? In other words, like we want to do something that's really good and positive in our life spiritually, right? So let's say it's journaling or gratitude or meditation or doing more creative things or serving more or whatever it is, right? But then if we fail to do it, right, a day, two, 3 days go by, maybe more, couple of weeks go by, and we haven't set aside the time to do the good thing that we want to do, that we know is good for us and good for, our soul, nourishing our soul. We can sort of, in our own head, beat ourselves up for that, right? What a loser, what a failure, right? We kind of we use that kind of language, self-talk language. And think about it though. Why do we do, if we do that? Hopefully you don't do that. If you don't do that, you're way ahead of the game. But if you do that, think about why you do that. Like for a lot of us that were in evangelical Christian churches, or maybe even in our families, or maybe at schools we went to, teachers we had, other people, mentors in our life, if they used that kind of thing to motivate us. In other words, if we were motivated in the past, primarily by guilt and shame, even if we have deconstructed that theology, even if we've stepped away from those places of influence in our life, we no longer go to that church, we no longer believe that denomination's teachings, we don't feel like we're under the authority of the Bible or a certain doctrine or teacher or something, right? Okay, great, that's really good. But if you are still motivating yourself to do good things, to do the things that are good and again, nourishing to your soul, and you're motivating yourself with that worm theology that you're a loser, you're a failure, man, stop. And first of all, realize that that's what you're doing. Part of the reason, hopefully, that you wanted to deconstruct and move away from that sort of toxic evangelical religious, abuse was partly because of that's what people used to motivate you, right? So don't keep using that mechanism to motivate yourself, especially to motivate yourself to do something that is intended to set you free. Does that make sense? So pay attention to that, and don't and as much as possible, don't allow yourself to do that, right? It's very difficult to break that habit, right? Um, so let go of that shame and guilt, and that's a big one. Uh, when other people have used shame to motivate us, we tend to use shame to motivate ourselves. And guilt tripping yourself into keeping a resolution or beating yourself up, judging yourself for not being good enough, whatever. Um, please don't enter the new year with guilt. Okay. December says amen, right? Thank you. Leave guilt in 2024. If you got it, if that's what's been motivating you, and then make a decision, not a resolution, make a decision. You're not going to tolerate that from anyone, and not even from yourself. You would not tolerate that, I hope, from someone in authority over you to tell you you're a loser, you're a failure, you're no good, right? Any of those things. Then don't take it from yourself either. In other words, whatever you decide to do in 2025, do it from a place of grace and not guilt. Your desire to improve your life, your desire to take charge of your spiritual health by doing these things like gratitude and whatever it is, journaling, again, etc., all those different things, whatever those things are, do it from a place of love and a place of freedom. And if you don't do it, again, don't beat yourself up. Just say, yeah, I still want to do this, and so I'm going to do it. Just do it. And if you forget to do it, you're too busy to do it, then okay, say, well, what do I need to do? Make a plan. What can I do to make sure that I do this thing because it's important? Because I need to do it. And just focus your energy on doing the thing, not about beating yourself up for whatever excuses or reasons or things that come, life gets in the way. It's not about perfection, right? It's really about just recognizing that none of us is perfect, and we're all going to fall short of our aspirations. We have a desire, we have an aspiration to do something that's really good. Then keep that aspiration, keep that focus on doing that thing that is important to you. And another thing we talked about was, and I think this is really important. We talked about focusing on generating good news. So what do I mean by that? Again, this is a little bit on the Wednesday's blog post that I'm going to have on New Year's Day. But we talked about how, it's easy to feel helpless and hopeless when every headline on social media and if you're watching, 24-hour news networks, which I don't recommend. It's always about chaos and controversy, right? Catastrophe. So, if you're only paying attention to all the bad news, and after a while, you start to be cynical. You start to believe that the world is nothing but an endless barrage of bad news and horrible things. And it makes you feel helpless. It makes you feel angry. And by the way, that's what they want you to feel. They want you to feel helpless. They want you to feel hopeless. They want you to feel angry, right? One thing we talked about was Facebook has figured out that to get people more engaged, what they need to do is send you more, feed you more information and posts, let you see more posts. This is going to the algorithm that trigger you, that make you angry and upset, not to make you happy and peaceful and joyful and optimistic. So, for example, this is the easiest way to explain it. If you're a conservative, okay, then Facebook will not feed you posts that are conservative posts about good things happening in the conservative world. They'll send you news about good things happening in the progressive world. Because why? That'll piss you off. That'll get your reaction. Now, that says there are good things going on in the progressive world. But you know who will not get those posts? Progressives. Progressives are not being fed information about all the good news happening in the progressive world. Oh, no, no. They're getting all the news that's coming from the conservative world. Now, it would be very easy for Facebook or any other social media platform to switch that, right? You'd even think in some level it would make sense. Let's tell conservatives what's going on in the conservative world. Let's tell progressives what's going on in the progressive world. There you go. That's it. That's who they are. That's what they care about. That's what's important to them. No, they don't want to do that. They want you angry and they want you pissed off because that's what gets clicks. That's what keeps you on their platform. That's what keeps you arguing back and forth on their, the comment pages. That's what they want, and that's how one of the ways they use the algorithm to manipulate you. So, which is why I wrote this blog post about like, what if we could change that? What if you could trick it? What if you could manipulate the algorithm instead of the other way around to send you, generates more of those the good things you want to know about. But one thing, as we were talking about this, someone yesterday in the Square 3 call said something really cool. They said, we can create good news within ourselves through gratitude and practicing kindness and love and compassion and empathy. We generate sort of that good news within ourselves, and that has a ripple effect that extends beyond us, right? So my friend said, when I generate good energy within myself, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It impacts the world around me in ways I may never see. I completely believe that. I think that is one of the ways we change the world, is by ourselves becoming generators, little engines, little nuclear reactors of good news. Right? In other words, become the good news. That the code word is also gospel, right? Be that living good news for yourself and for everyone around you. Be good news when they walk in the room. Be good news when they get a message from you or a call or a voicemail from you. Even total strangers, they don't even know who you are, but there's something about you that's good news to them, right? And you are capable of generating that kind of energy within yourself. Again, and if you get that, focus on that and do that, because you will create a ripple effect, right? I do believe there are frequencies, there are things that are happening around us, and we will make a difference. Again, in ways you may never know, right? You never know the positive impact you could have on somebody at the grocery store or the library or the doctor's office or the gas station or wherever it happens to be, that will carry on something good and positive and better in the lives of multiple people, hundreds of people, maybe even thousands of people. I think that's really, really important, and to keep that in mind. And I also want to say, here's something else we talked about. Like a lot of times we ourselves will, especially during these times of the year, we'll say, you know what, I really feel strongly that the universe is telling me, the voice within myself, the voice of wisdom and truth within me, my divine connection with God, is saying to me that this year I need to blank. And you fill in the blank, right? So again, for me, it could be spending more time in practicing gratitude, right? Okay, so that's real and that's genuine, right? I'm aware of that. I have a desire for that. I can see the good in that. Everything in me says, yes, this is what I need to do. This is important. I need to focus on gratitude. Again, this is just an example. That's wonderful. The danger is, and we all do this, especially if you've been like myself and you've been a former pastor. We can receive that message and be aware of that thing that's just for us, right? Hey Keith, this is the thing you need to focus on this year. And then we can project that outward on everybody else. Hey, everybody, everyone needs to do this. It's so important to me. I know it's very important. Here's why it's going to make a difference in my life, and therefore everyone needs to do this. Don't impose your goal or your resolution, your inspiration, true divine inspiration for you. Don't impose that on other people in your life, not on your family members, not on your friends, coworkers, etc. Again, it's a temptation. We all fall into this of feeling like, because I think this is important, everyone should do this. And haven't we all been the victim of that kind of thing? Right? Sometimes, like at work, the boss might come in, your supervisor might come in and say, all right, everybody, this year we're going to do X, Y, Z because this is something I think is really important. Yeah, that's what he thinks is important or she thinks is important, but is it? Maybe it's important to them, but is it important to you? Is it necessary to you, or is it a distraction? Is it actually pulling you away from something that you genuinely know that you should be doing? Right. So again, I just don't impose your aha, your epiphany on everyone else around you. And I would say, actually, if anything, find a way to help everyone else around you. Give them that permission and that freedom to figure out to find their own aha, their own, this is what I should be doing, and then help them do that. Right. So recognize that your thing might be gratitude, but their thing might be painting. Their thing might be volunteering at a community center or a homeless shelter, right? Or vice versa, right? I've seen it with people like, I think it's really important. I need to be volunteering more and helping people that are less fortunate. We all should do that. Again, I know it always is coming from a good place, but just don't fall into that temptation. One thing we talked about is, like, again, in church settings, I know I sat through a lot of sermons where the pastor was super passionate about something that everyone in the church needed to be also passionate about, that I realized later, or maybe sometimes even at the time, realized that was for you, dude. Like, that sermon was for you. That wasn't for the rest of us. Like, you were hearing something, you were tuned into something really, really important, that God was wanting you to hear and understand, but it was only for you. It's not for everybody. Like, you should just kept that to yourself. Take your own advice. You know what I mean? So we all have our own path to walk, and I would just encourage us all to walk that path that's uniquely our own. And then another thing I talked about was, and I think this is one of the final things, cultivating love and connection, right? Everything boils down to love. I think really that's, if there's anything important in our life and for the new year ahead, it would be that we learn to love ourselves, to love each other. This world is messy and imperfect. And finding ways, again, that this is not a rule, this is not a law, this is not a commandment. This is just something to consider. Like, what if we found a way to make it a practice that whenever possible, we would be open to small acts of kindness, of not being so self-centered, to just really be present with people. I've done podcast episodes here about the power of listening. Remember that? That sometimes listening to someone is so much like loving them that most people can't tell the difference. So, just, man, love is so important. I think we're all desperate for it. It's the heart of community. It's the heart of connection, right? And so there's some creativity connected to ways that we love each other. Again, it's not a formula. It's not the same for everybody. We're unique. The people in our lives are unique. We all have different love languages. We're all going through different things at certain times. So just finding ways to say, how can I be a blessing to that person? How can I really help that person today? How can I bring more light and love and joy to that person's life today? So, as we're looking at this blank calendar ahead of us, I want to pass on some hope for you. I hope that this new year is one filled with hope for you. And again, I think some of the things I've talked about are ways we can remove barriers that allow hope to sort of flow to us. We, sort of move the rocks, move the blockages, make it as likely as possible that hope will find its way to us in the year ahead. I think the things I've been talking about are very important when it comes to that. We don't know what's coming. We don't know what lies ahead, and we don't know if it's good, and we don't know if it's bad. No one does. So I think if, take time in the next couple of days to make an assessment of the previous year, your past experiences. Think about the kinds of experiences you would like to nurture and curate for this year ahead, as far as it depends upon you. And really listening to, okay, what are the things that I kind of think it's probably only like one, maybe two things for most of us. It's not a list of 10 things. You know what I mean? There's probably only one or two things that if we take the time to silence ourselves, remove distractions, just really listen, we will recognize one or two things that will be key for us in the coming year, that will help us not be controlled by social media, not be controlled by the news feed, not be tossed to and fro by every little random thing that may be happening around us, but really centered and driven. And I don't mean driven in the sense of allowing other people to drive us. I mean, a drive from within ourselves that really resonates with who we are, why we're here, and who we want to be. Not just in the year ahead, I mean, just right now. Do you want to be more loving? Do you want to be more forgiving? Do you want to be more kind? Do you want to be more patient? Do you want to be more thoughtful? Then make room for those things. Make a decision that that's a high priority for me. This is who I want to be. And so I need to find ways to be that, to do the things that help me be that person that I kind of already know that I am. But again, there's all other things around me that are preventing me from fully realizing that. And so anyway, I hope this is helpful. I also wanted to just say a little last minute plug here for something. My family has been doing we've been doing it for about, I think at least 10 years now. And so here, actually have it here. If you're watching the video, this is it's a little candy jar. And you notice it's full of papers. And so what happens is all year long, my family will, anything good that happens to us, we write it down on a piece of paper, you put the date on there, and you just write something cool that happened, right? And you put it in the jar. So, here we are, end of the year, this jar is full, right? And I'm probably going to put a couple more in here before New Year's Eve. But on New Year's Eve, our practice is to sit down as a family. Wendy and I will sit down at the kitchen table, and we will open this jar, pour out the papers onto the table, and one at a time, we'll take turns opening these little slips of paper and reading out loud something really great that happened during this past year. There's always stuff that we've totally forgotten about. We'll be reading through it like, oh my gosh, that's right. I forgot all about that. And by the time you're finished reading this, again, on New Year's Eve, with only a few minutes or hours left before, in the year, before we ring in the new year, you get to spend those last few hours or minutes or whenever you decide to do it. You spend part of that last day really, really reminding yourself of all the great things that have happened in the year, that most of these things you didn't see coming. And it really sort of resets your mind to that possibility, that beautiful uncertainty of what tomorrow can bring. And some of those things that they are in the jar are maybe even related to bad things that happened, but how you overcame them, right? Whether that's I got a flat tire, but this is how it worked out, or whatever it happens to be, right? It's just been a wonderful practice for us to go through that, and then when you're all done, you're left now with a completely empty jar, totally empty, and we usually set it in our living room, so it's sitting on the bookcase in our living room, so we can always see it there, right? And now you can, going to the new year, you have an opportunity to put something new in the jar, right? And seeing that jar fill up throughout the year is also a reminder, hey, this has been a good year. Things have happened that have been really good. Look how many things are in that jar. So I think, again, it's really important what we focus on, right? I've talked before about this thing about how we are meaning-making, pattern-seeking machines, and whatever you're looking for is what you find. And this kind of a thing is just another practice of looking for something good. And then when you see it, write it down, capture it, put it on a piece of paper, stick it in a jar. And then leverage that at the end of the year to remind yourself of all the amazing things that happened that maybe you've forgotten about, right? Right. All right. So I got a bunch of comments now here at the end as I've been rambling. Let me back up just a little bit here, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's see. Alan Vanderlei says, keep talking, Keith, and I'll parse my thoughts into measured memes on the margins of your soliloquy. Wow, thank you. Doa Deer, it's amazing what a simple smile can do. Yes. Alan says, we are generators. We are good news by choice. There we go. Yep. December Rose says, exactly. And I feel like Christians do this as a whole, whether intentionally or unintentionally, project their personal convictions onto others. Yeah, it is a bad habit, right? We need to get away from that. Alan says, yes, aha moments. Doa Deer says, indeed, if it's important to me, it has to be important to everyone else, right? Maybe not. Yeah, Doa Deer says, I love what ifs. Good one. Michael says, I need that skill. Listening. Yeah, we all need to work on that. But again, don't shame yourself into it. Don't motivate yourself with guilt and shame. Just say, I want to listen. So just start listening. Just do that. Just listen. And do it more and more until you get better and better at it. Alan says, there seems to be a genuine outflow of endearing care of your heart. Oh, thank you. Doa Deer says, I think hope has the power to create more hope. And that's a good thing. That's beautiful. I like that. Hope has the power to create more hope. Yeah. Being quicker to hear and slower to respond, she says. Yep, exactly. And Doa Deer says, an aside, it seems like if people aren't absorbed by tradition, they make their own. People like that comfort. Yeah, and see, this is, again, I agree with that. I think that's the opportunity we have as we're going through deconstruction. We talk about this in Square One. We actually spend a whole week in Square One thinking about new daily practices that we can adopt to create our own traditions, right? In the past, in religion, we've allowed other people to hand us traditions. Do this, do that, right? And now that you've deconstructed that, you can say, okay, I don't do these things anymore, but you need to replace that with something good, right? What's the good thing that you're doing now to replace the other things you were doing that weren't accomplishing anything, right? They weren't really helping you. So figure out what things really do help you. And again, we go through several different exercises of like, try this and try that. I break down into 4 different categories of the kinds and the types of activities we can be involved in. And I just ask everyone to try 2 or 3 things from each of these 4 categories until, some things you're going to try and they won't work. Great. Scratch it off the list. Don't do it again. But a few things you're going to try and they're going to be like, oh, this is, yes, I love this. This is really great. And figuring out what works and doing it because it works, and it works for you. That's all that matters. Then you don't do it because Keith said so, because I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just telling you to try some things, and then you decide what works, and you decide if you want to do it again or not, and how you want to do it, right? So again, I think that's the opportunity of going through deconstruction into reconstruction, is recognizing we now get to take charge. We get to be the ones in control of we get to take ownership of our own spiritual growth and maturity. And we're not going to let anyone else tell us what that should look like. And please don't, I'm not going to do it either. So don't expect me to do it. Don't ask me to do it. Okay. I was talking to someone this week about that over the weekend. I talk all the time. Sola Mysterium, my book, Sola Mysterium, I talk about this. Sola Deus, I talk about this. I talk about this in the Gospel of Thomas, the Quantum Sayings of Jesus. Be your own guru. Guru yourself. Don't offload that spiritual authority to anyone else. You have that authority, only you. And so we can learn from each other. Of course, I learn stuff from people all the time. Read a book, listen to a podcast, whatever, read a blog, have a conversation of coffee with somebody. We should always be in that mode of learning and growing and thinking and rethinking. But we should never be in the place of letting someone else do that for us or tell us how to do that. Right? That's not what it should look like. Anyway, again, thank you all so much for hanging out with me here for this Second Cup with Keith. I hope you all had a wonderful 2024. Look forward to continuing this conversation in 2025. Please be safe. Hug the people around you. Let them know you love them and you care about them. Don't miss an opportunity to let them know how much they mean to you and how much you appreciate them. I do invite you to think about some of the things I've talked about here in this podcast. And we will see you in the new year. All right. God bless. Take care.